The Backrooms. As someone who has been on the internet since its inception, or been on YouTube from the early days, have seen what that platform was back in those days, i.e. an anime streaming service, to where now it's become, through all its many phases, through the streamer, through the Let's Player era, to now be into this new AI shortsy sloppy area. However, when we look at the history of YouTube and the people who have come before and their sort of projects, we get a different picture of a different time and a different era. And it's not unlike in this film, where we're transported back to the 90s, 1990, I believe is the date that I saw. But it's interesting to note because this whole concept, this whole idea, is not necessarily an original thought, as it originated from the internet as a creepypasta. But what is interesting in this point is that a certain young gentleman at his time called Kane Pixel would eventually take that idea and really go running with those thoughts all the way to 2026, where now, in the ongoing hype of YouTubers now becoming movie directors, which I am a big fan of, it's time for our newest edition of Can It Movie. And yeah, it can. Right off the bat, the Backrooms and what all it brought to the table in terms of this idea, this sort of concept, the anxiousness that it brings by simply existing, is something psychological that we can't necessarily explain per se, but we know why we can know why we start feeling these ways. And in that cage, or in that vortex of confusion, distortion, of uneasiness, and with the knowledge that there is something else in this place with you, then yeah, things get very interesting. Our two characters, our main leads, is one older gentleman, I already forgot their names, but they're dealing with a lot of things, right? You think about how marriages these days are not exactly celebrated because of the underlying tones and like the negativity that comes along with the possibility of this not being real or being a lifelong thing. And that hurts because, as we know it, all these sort of systems, all these mechanics that have been built up for generations really serve primarily the woman. And I'll leave it at that, because all we really need to understand is that this person who is going through a rough time and who has lost everything to this marriage, including a place to sleep and a warm bed, is carrying a lot of, let's call it, stress. And we see that stress personified in our second character, which is actually his therapist. So we get to a point where things were so rough for the gentleman that he needed a therapist. So you already know we're starting off at a really good place. The question being is, what happens when you're left alone? And in that solidarity, you start to find a new way to explore. The Backrooms really reminds me, and I messed it up yesterday in the short review, go check that out. But the Backrooms reminds me of a really old school David Finch or David Cage or David Finch series or movie called Twin Peaks. And it's, at the time, it was very cult classic, I guess. But for those of us that know about Twin Peaks, the quick rundown of it is that it's essentially if David Finch decided to make a Twilight series or Twilight Zone series, but give it a really twisted and uneasy sentiment. You're not necessarily in trouble, but being in that environment and picking up on contextual clues makes it very, very apparent that you're not supposed to be here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the fun begins. Because we're left with a simple thought. If we have the power to expand our minds and to accept something that is physically impossible to our humanistic noggins, if we're able to push past that and open up a whole new level of understanding slash processing slash creation, how bad could it be? So, thinking of everything this film did, simply put, there was a young gentleman that started making creepypasta YouTube videos that really stuck to that, let's call it history, or that epic, that tale. And years into the future where we are now, was able to recreate that image, that concept art, which was originally made as a YouTube video, to now come back around, fully knowing what their plan is, how they want to present this, and definitely pushing things past a limit that we as humans are probably not comfortable with. That being said, if you have an iron stomach, if you have the will of a fighter, and if you truly believe adventure is out there, then hey, who knows? You might just make it back alive. But it's a good film. Go check it out. I do think that this is like a monumentous moment, not only because it's because it's a YouTube person, again, like Markiplier, again, like the Chris Stuckman, that are presenting their art on the big screen now. And also, hey, Digital Circus is apparently now gonna be a movie on movies. But seeing that wave of creativity come back or go into the movie theaters, it almost feels like the cream of the crop, i.e. the original YouTubers, the original directors are finally getting their chance to actually present things on the big screen. And to me, someone who genuinely loves movies and is very excited to get more, not representation, it is representation, but I don't like the idea of shoving it into that box, but giving perspectives, right? Different thoughts, crazy ideas, different processings. I do believe that there is a hunger for that, and clearly watching the Backrooms provides a new, not new, I don't want to overhype it, but like a different feeling, like a different setup. And Obsession did a really good job with intense elements in that faction, But I do like that in just the past 3 months, we've seen multiple new ideas. And again, more than anything, that brings me happiness because it proves that creativity still exists in the year of 2026. You know, AI exists, but so does creativity. And the idea that we are getting more and more recognition for people who normally wouldn't have these opportunities, or we're opening avenues to a new wave of storytellers, is fascinating to me. And I really, really hope that things go smoothly along the way. And who knows, maybe your next favorite YouTuber can be the next director slash artist of a great imagined image that only they could have came up with. And that's very exciting because a lot of these things that happen in here are pretty disturbing. And the fact that they happen make me appreciate the possibility that they could happen, because as a wise man once said, knowing is half the battle. And hey, it doesn't help that you know how to read blueprints. So grab a shovel, get into construction, and go watch the Backrooms. But hey, until then, it's been your boy, EXP666, getting ready to go motorcycle off into a bar and watch a live music show for the homies, and wishing you an awesome weekend with a beautiful, beautiful days of fun. But hey, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.